He is the world's fastest reader.
The world's fastest reader.
World's fastest speed reader.
The world's fastest reader.
Fastest reader, at least the Guinness World Book of Records thinks so too. His name is Howard Berg, and he is still working feverishly over there reading. And look how fast he goes. He just lays his hand on that.
Howard Berg is listed in the 1990 Guinness Book of World Records for reading a staggering 25,000 words a minute and 80 pages per minute. How does one even achieve such lightning fast reading?
The Dallas native can read and comprehend a page and a half a second, depending on content.
Max Baucus's healthcare bill, all 1,503 pages of it, as the world's fastest reader and a guy who can comprehend every single word he whips through.
Do you want to try to read the whole book or part of it, or all of them, or how long?
Probably need about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes to read the whole book. Is it okay?
I guess how long it took me to write the book? A lot longer than that.
Today we dive deep into the mind of Howard Berg to unravel the mystery behind his lightning-fast reading abilities. Is this legit? Can you actually comprehend what you are reading? Is this skill attainable for anyone? Or does it require a unique set of talents?
As the world record speed reader, I strongly endorse this product.
Do you remember the first book you ever read?
Well, there's a difference between books that were read to me by my mom and what I read, but the first books I read, I remember was like the Dr. Seuss books, like Cat in the Hat and Horton Hears a Who. Those were the books I started with way back when I was learning how to read. They were very simple and entertaining, and I would say that's what sticks out in my mind is those particular books.
Were you always good at reading at an early age?
Well, when I was reading Horton Hears a Who, I wouldn't have been considered a world-class reader. So at that age, probably not. But I did have college-level reading when I was 11. And they test you in school, and it went up to 12th grade, 9th month, because that's the end of high school. It doesn't measure past that. So I was at the highest that it could measure when I was 11.
Can you walk us through your journey of becoming the fastest reader in the world? Like, what sparked your interest in speed reading?
Okay. Do you want me to go all the way back? Or I could start when I'm like 4 or 5. Oh, 5. When I was 5, I lived across the street from the Brooklyn Children's Museum. It was a science museum. Back then was different than today. Your mother said, be home for supper. They didn't take you anywhere. They didn't watch you. You was like, you're 5, go ahead, do your thing, come back at the end of the day. So I would go to the science museum and I'd give people tours of the museum when I was 5, which is crazy. Today they would like throw everyone in jail. But they also had a planetarium and they only had about 10 shows. So I went every Saturday to watch the planetarium. By the time I was 7, I'd seen every show like 50 times. So I was able to do the astronomy presentations too. And then when I moved, when I was about 8, we moved to the projects. The projects in Brooklyn were as good as you would expect. It was a West Side Story without the dancing and music. I met Bernardo. He had a knife and he wasn't dancing and he wasn't laughing. It was very unpleasant. But there was one safe place in my neighborhood. The library. Apparently, gang kids treat libraries like vampires treat churches. They don't go there. Have you ever been in a bookstore or a library and there was a bunch of gangbangers coming in to hang out? It just doesn't seem to be the kind of place they like to be seen. So I found, hey, this is a good place to stay because it's safe. And I read a lot. And I was reading college level when I was 11. When I turned 17, I went to university at 17. I went to the State University of New York, Binghamton, which is in the top state colleges in the country. And I majored in biology. When the second half of my junior year, I got interested in the brain and learning. And there's a branch of biology called psychobiology, not psychotic biology. That's Frankenstein. Psychobiology is the biology of behavior and learning, instincts. So I told the dean I want to major in psychology too. And he said, "You're a second semester junior. You haven't had one psych course. You only have 1 year left. You'll have to do 4 years of psychology in one and finish the bio program at the same time. You'll need to take 6 science courses a term, 2 4-hour labs. Lab reports took 16 hours on a slide rule. You didn't have computers like today. So it was 40 hours of lab, 18 credits of science. And to make it a little challenging, I had 3 jobs. I was working part-time, 18 hours a week. And I found you really have to read fast to keep up with that material. So I started using what I learned about the brain and how it works, and I got up to 80 pages a minute. And I finished the psych program in 1 year. And then I studied for the graduate record exam, which is like an SAT, but for graduate school. And I read 48 books in 3 nights, like biochemistry, cell physiology, genetics, plant systematics, not the lightest reading. And I read 48 books in 3 nights. I took the test in bio. I got an 800, which was in the 99th percentile. So it showed that I wasn't just reading fast, I was retaining. And at that point, I think I was reaching the acme of my learning. Then I became a teacher in New York in the inner city. And in order to keep my license, because I didn't major in education, I needed credits. So I took a graduate course in educational psychology on an AP basis, taking the book and reading it and then taking the test. Well, back then, calendars were called a day timer. They weren't electronic. So I'm looking at my calendar, like, next week's the test. I better buy the book. And I realized it was 400 pages and I hadn't started it. If I failed the test, I'd lose my job. And I only had 7 hours to study. So I read this book, which normally would take 5 months in graduate school, in 7 hours, 4 times. I took the 6-hour test in 50 minutes and I got a B+. So I got 4 graduate credits in less than 8 hours for $65. You say, why did I get an A? I didn't care about the course. I needed the graduate credits to keep my license. I needed a C-. So a B+ was more than adequate. And that's one tip. Always have a purpose when you read. What's your goal? My goal was 4 graduate credits. I couldn't care less what was in the book. All I cared about was the credits so I could keep my license active. So based on my goal, I did quite well. I was getting a B+ where I needed a C-. And that was the start. And then I had my own school and had kids as young as 11 getting A's in college on AP tests in as little as a week consistently. One kid finished college at 16, graduated 4.0, all economics major, all A's, went for a master's in math at 18. And they paid him $27,000 to teach math when he was 18 to undergrads. Graduated at 19 with a 3.97 GPA, all A's, 1B. And he came over to me and says, what do I tell my mom? I never got a B before. I said, Stephen, you had all A's, graduated at 16. You went to graduate school for free. They gave you free books, room and board, tuition, and paid you $27,000 a year to be a graduate student. I think she's going to keep you. You only got 1 B in all A's. It was a happy ending. His mother did keep him, but she made him promise never to get another B. I believe he's now a professor at Yale. And we did this repeatedly with young people all over. And it was very exciting to see that it wasn't just that I could do it, which is kind of a monkey show. Look at him read fast, versus people can do this. I had an 84-year-old in Pasadena read 3 books in 3 hours the day after I taught her in 4 hours. So it's not just that I can do this, but it's very, very learnable. And we could describe some of those things people can do and how to do it today to get them started. So we don't just talk about what I can do, but actually give them an ability to read faster and comprehend and understand and remember, which is probably more interesting than them hearing I can do it.
I'm going to be honest. When I first saw a video of you reading, I thought, there's no way this is real. This is crazy. How could someone do this? What would you say to people that think what you are doing is not real or not legit?
Oh, it's very real. I mentioned I did a 4-year psych program in 1 year, and I got an 800 on the GRE in biology, and I did a graduate course in 7 hours with a B plus. That's pretty real. But there's different kinds of reading. Let me explain. The first kind of reading is called elementary reading. That's what's the letter A? What's the letter B? And DOG spells dog. That's when you're learning the alphabet and learning how to create words, and words like hot dog are 2 letters but 1 meaning. That's the first level. The second level is called inspectional reading. When I'm reading at 80 pages a minute, I'm really doing inspectional reading. I'm picking up the main ideas, the key points, what I could learn if I wanted to learn it, my background in it, my previous experience. Is it interesting? Is it boring? Will it be hard? Will it be easy? I am not learning calculus in 5 minutes, and I am not learning organic chemistry in 5 minutes. That's not human. That's not what I do. The next level up is analytical reading, where you really are learning the subject. And I mentioned I did a graduate level course in 7 hours. Now, it's a 5-month course. So if you could get a B plus in a 5-month course in 7 hours, that's not bad. But it wasn't 5 minutes. And I did learn it at a very high level. So depending on what I'm trying to do, when I'm on TV, and I read the healthcare bill, it was 1,500 pages in 50 minutes. I could tell you what was in the bill. I could tell you what the bill does and doesn't do. Can I tell you every aspect of a 1,500 page bill at a page and a half a second? No. But I could tell you what you'd want to know. What would it do for you? How would it help you? Who might it help more? What are some of the problems with the bill? What are some of the advantages of the bill? And then if I really wanted to learn it in detail, I would go back and use a different set of skills. So no, I'm not reading calculus or organic chemistry at 80 pages a minute and mastering the subject at the grad school level, but I can learn it in a few hours at a very high level by not, and the difference is reading isn't learning. People read books all the time and fail. Reading isn't learning. It's part of learning, but what about comprehension? You could read a book and memorize it and still fail. How many people took calculus, learned the equations, and couldn't solve a problem? They had no idea what to do with the equations. They knew what they were, but they didn't know how to apply them to any real world problem. That's still reading, and it's not memory. They memorized the equations. They just don't know how to use them in any practical way. That's another level of learning, comprehension. What about retention? People study on Thursday, they test on Friday, and by Saturday, they don't know the name of the book and who wrote it. And that's called education. If you went at graduation and they said, one last surprise quiz, name all the teachers and courses you had for the last 4 years, no one would get a diploma. I don't know what I took. I don't know who taught it. What's the point? You know it for a day, you take a test, and the next day it's gone. So no, what about memory and recall and understanding? And how about emotional intelligence? How about staying focused and not getting nervous taking a test, or performing under stressful conditions, or staying alert for a long time doing something very tedious and boring? So when you combine reading, comprehension, studying, remembering, EQ skills, now you've got something that makes sense. It's not a magic trick. We're taking different aspects of learning, mastering each of those skills, and then using them to get the best possible outcome. So you're not just reading and not knowing anything. Your understanding, your attention, and your ability to use it when you need it are there. And as a caveat, another level is how to think. How do you connect the dots and use it in a way no one thought of before, being creative, So you're not just looking at a flip phone and seeing a flip phone, but like Steve Jobs, you're seeing an iPhone that didn't exist and recognizing that that had a bigger potential than anyone realized when they were using the flip phone. That's a whole different level, and I teach that as well. So when you use all of these skills simultaneously and learn them, you're not just looking at pages quickly, you're learning information that's relevant, retaining it, and knowing how to use it. That's what I'm doing.
So if you want to read very fast, you have to stop the inner monologue. It refers to the speaking words in your head while you're reading the text. So to reduce that, you have to process the words in pictures like a movie, like you talked about. How can someone remove the voice in their head?
You don't totally remove it. You want to remove superfluous data, conjunctions, prepositions, verbs, adverbs. I want to learn, let's say I'm reading Pavlov, Russian psychologist, 1902, revolutionized learning, use the hungry dog. Or I could read, in 1902, in a country called Russia, psychology had a grand awakening. A scientist named Pavlov decided he was going to study classical conditioning. In order to perform his experiment, he used dogs. He made sure all of the dogs were. Do you see the difference? Pavlov, Russian psychologist, 1902, revolutionized learning. If 6 months from now, I don't care what book you read, 6 months from now, you're going to know the sentences you read in the book. You're going to know who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who was it about? Where did it happen? When did it happen? What happened? Why did it happen? How did it? And you're going through the facts. You're getting the details. Now, the words make sentences convey information. So the writer needs to do that. But the learner isn't learning word by word. They're learning ideas. They're learning facts. They're learning meaning and significance. So when I'm reading, I'm still seeing psychology, Pavlov, 1902. I'm not hearing in Russia in 1902 in a country called Russia, which was very cold. There was once a very great psychologist. His name was Pavlov. That's the paragraph. But I'm not reading that. I'm seeing paragraph's meaning. And now I'm retaining that for years and years and years and able to apply it when I need it, which is all anyone really is doing. If you think of all the books you've read in school in your life. Can you repeat one page of any of them verbatim?
Nope.
No, because that's not what your brain is doing when it reads. It's learning data and storing it in meaningful ways. And I just learned how to do it faster and better. And I found it was a learnable skill that other people could do also.
So you're not reading word for word. Would you say it's skipping most words and selecting certain words?
Not even that. I'm reading faster than I can think. So what I'm seeing, when you look at a movie and there's so much, look at behind me, see all those books? You see them like that. Now, what if I read the title of every book one at a time? How long would that take? And tell you what the book is about. How long would that take? Do you see the difference between looking and hearing? Seeing is analog. It's spatial. You're taking Gestalt. You take it all in at once. Hearing is digital. One word at a time. People are reading one word at a time. I'm seeing what's happening instantly. I'm seeing all of the data in that paragraph as a movie, as an experience. Some of the words stick out, words that are vocabulary words, names that are relevant, numbers that are relevant, things I really need to learn. I find them. But I do that in a second step. First, I read about 80 pages a minute. I read the whole book in 5 minutes. And what I know at the end of 5 minutes is, do I want to read this book? Is this book worth my time? Does it have information I can use? Or is it just another book that doesn't have anything new I don't know already? How hard will this book be for me to learn? How familiar is the material? How difficult will this book be for me to learn? How unfamiliar is the material? Have I ever read a book like this before? Was it fun or was it boring? What could I gain by reading this book and not another book? What did the writer put in the book to make it easy to learn? Did they put headings? Did they put subheadings? Are there charts? Are there diagrams? Is there fonts and highlighting? Is there a glossary? Is there what's here that I can use that or not here that I would have liked to have seen that would have made it easier for me to learn? That's what I'm doing. And now I've got the big picture. I know what the book does. I know what the book offers. I know what the book's about. And now I decide, okay, do I want to invest more time mastering this material, or is it enough to know that when the day comes when that is a solution to a future problem, I know where to go and learn the solution? I don't need it today. I might need it tomorrow. I might need it in 3 years from now, but I know where the solution is. And when that problem happens, I can learn it. Now, if I decide I want to learn it, now I'm going to go back and find the information that's most important for me to know. We'll talk about that later, but there's basically 5 things you need to learn. And I learn them very, very, very well. And I put them into long-term memory using a memory technique. So now I'm not just reading fast, I'm remembering the information that's relevant to my success for a very, very long time. And then I get into a good state so when I need to use it, I'm not nervous or frustrated or tired or unfocused. And that's basically what I'm doing. And it's learnable. It's not a hard skill. I've had children as young as 8 and people as old as 92. That's pretty much everybody. Fetuses, no. I can't teach speed reading to a fetus. And if you're senile and you don't know where you are, you probably aren't going to be a good prospect for a reading class. But if you're between 8 and 92, I'm going to guess most people today that are observing this are, I can fix it. I can make you learn fast.
So you would say any book, you're still able to maintain comprehension and retention while reading at such high speeds?
The main points and the main ideas. I'm not learning every formula and every vocabulary word. I'm learning that there are formula and there are vocabulary words. I might pick up some of them, but when I go back to read, to learn, then I'm learning them, and I'm learning them quite well so that I can use them at a college level effectively. So it's the difference between reading an educational psych book in 3 minutes and getting a B plus on the AP test was 7 hours. But again, we're talking 5 months of learning in 7 hours. That's still a very good time commitment for a course that would take that many months to do it in 7 hours. But it wasn't 3 minutes. It still took take 7 hours to accomplish the outcome. And who wouldn't want to be able to do graduate level learning that took 5 or 6 months in school in less than a day at a high level of understanding and comprehension? So again, what's my purpose? Do I really, really, really need to know this and know it well? Or do I need to know what it is and where it is so when I do need to know it, I know where to go to get it?
What's the longest book or document you have ever read?
The healthcare bill was in 3 phases. The first was the Senate bill. It was 1,500 pages. It took 50 minutes. The second version was the House version. It was 2,000 pages. Took 58 minutes. The combined bill of the Senate and the House, the one they passed, was 2,600 pages. And that took almost 90 minutes. So I'm going to say when you're reading 2,600 pages in 90 minutes, it's a lot of reading. Well, they also had me read all of the bills for the year, all the laws that were passed. It was 25,000 pages. I didn't finish, but I probably did about 60% of the 25,000 pages in less than an hour. And then they asked me to describe what was in it, which I did. I needed more time to do all 25,000 pages, but I'm going to say somewhere about 12,000 pages got done in a little under an hour, roughly, and then talked about the laws and which one stood out. Okay, you one that really stood out. I never forgot this. This is 8 or 9 years ago. It's illegal if you are on a farm to chew gum and spit it out. You have to put the gum. I'm not making this up. This was in the bill. If you spit the gum out, it's a biohazard. So there has to be a spot in the farm where you can take your discarded gum and stick it. You cannot spit your gum out in the middle of your field where you're farming. It's a biohazard. It's a law. It's a law. I'm not making that up. That was in the 25. That really, I never forgot that. I says, oh my God, who thinks like this? I think there was a law. It's illegal to have sex with a bird. And I'm like, okay, well, scratch that off the bucket list. Who thinks like that? You have to first think about it, and then you got to write the law. I mean, just there was so much stuff that was like, really, this is what you are spending your time on, making that kind of a law. But I guess if you really love a bird, you're just gonna have to find another way to express your love. It's insane. But that was what was there. I mean, it's not all that crazy, but quite a lot of it is that kind of nonsense. And you say, well, is this really what we need? With all the problems going on in the world, this is where we're focusing. Don't spit your gum out. Don't have sex with a bird. This is the greatest legal minds in the world. This is the problems they're solving. It just blew my mind that was stuff that they would put any focus or attention on.
Why did Fox News want you to read those bills in particular?
Well, the healthcare bill, they actually told me they called 10 people. Everyone they called said it can't be done. All these speed reading teachers that tell you they're the best and they're great and they can, when it came time to actually do it, they said, oh, I can't do that. What do you want me to do? You want me to read 2,000 pages in an hour? Oh, no, I can't do it. And I said, I could do it. I know what I can do. I said, I can do it, but it's going to take almost an hour. I said, this is not a 5-minute thing. It's a lot of pages. I said, it took me 50 minutes on the 1,500 pages and 58 minutes on the two. There's a pace. When you start, you're kind of building, you're like running, you kind of get in your zone. So when I'm first going, I'm not at my top speed. I'm kind of getting my mind warmed up and focused. And then you kind of get into that sweet spot, when you're in flow. And then it's just boom, 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 boom. But you don't start at that level. I mean, when you're going for an hour, I'd say probably 45 minutes out of the 50, I was in my zone. But first 3 or 4 minutes, I'm not in my zone yet. I have to kind of switch my brain into that kind of a task. But they said, well, everyone said it can't be done. And I said, well, I know what I can do. There's a reason I was in the book of records and they weren't. He says, I can do it. They can't. But I didn't expect to master every nuance of 1,500 pages at a page and a half a second. What I did pick up was, what does the bill do? How does it work? What can it do to help you? What are some of the problems with this bill that they aren't talking about? All of those things I did pick up. And everything I said turned out to be true. I said, this bill is unrealistic. It's going to cost more money than they're projecting. They said, why do you say that? I said, well, there's going to be millions of people who haven't been to a doctor in 20 years. And now they're going to the doctor and just finding out you're diabetic. You have a heart condition. You have a very serious illness and you need some very, very expensive medicine, or you need a surgery. I said, well, what do you think is going to happen when millions of people who've been neglecting their health for decades find out they're very sick? They're going to need a lot of medical care, and that's going to cause the spike in the cost of this thing because people have to pay for it. And that's exactly what happened. There were so many sick people that weren't aware they were sick that it cost a lot more to make it work than they anticipated. But it evens out over time. You know, the people aren't suddenly finding out they're sick millions at a time, only at the beginning. And so it kind of found its level where it really would work. And I said, that would be a big problem. And I think that was the number one complaint. It costs a lot of money, and healthcare is very expensive. And when you're young and healthy, do you really want to spend the money? And my answer was, no one ever died of good health. So, you know, you're young and healthy. Guess what? You're going to get old and unhealthy. That's why people die. And when that happens, you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to go bankrupt because I have something that's going to help me. So at different points in your life, you're going to look at it very differently. The parent with a child with cancer being thrown off their health coverage, how are you going to keep them alive? You don't have the money to pay for their care. Are you going to let your child die? Are you going to go bankrupt trying to keep? Yeah, people went bankrupt trying to keep their children alive. This will fix it. That won't happen. You're a middle-aged man. You lost your job. Your health care was canceled. You had pre-existing conditions. No one wants to insure you anymore. Now they will. So I said, it all depends on the situation. For some people, it'll be wonderful. For many people, it'll be another expense they don't want. And that's exactly what happened. Many people are like, why do I have to pay for this? I don't want it. And other people are like, thank God my kid isn't going to die. Or now I can get the coverage I need for my diabetes. They wouldn't take me on a plan because I was too old and I had a pre-existing condition and they wouldn't take care of me. So it really depended on the circumstance. So that's the kind of thing I could pick up at 80 pages a minute, which is a lot more than most people would. But did I pick up every number and every date and every no, and I didn't pretend to. But with 1,500 pages, I had more than an hour's worth of material to talk about. You know, the stuff that I couldn't pick up wasn't as relevant to the audience. I was looking for the data that would have the highest meaning and significance to the interviewer and the viewing audience, the things they really would want to know that would really matter to them and their lives. That's what I looked at. And I could do that at very, very high speed.
Do you have a favorite book or maybe one that has impacted you the most?
Depends on the niche. In business, Unlimited Selling Power by Donald Moyne. Anyone who's an entrepreneur or in business should read that book. It was recommended to me by my friend Dan Kennedy. Dan and I used to lecture with Zig Ziglar together, so we got to know one another. And as you probably know, he's a very famous marketer. And he said that was one of the best books he ever read on marketing. And I have to agree with him. I read it 4 times. And I don't read books 4 times. But this particular book had so much valuable information. I didn't want to read it. I wanted to remember it at a very high level because it was that important. And then there's different other books. Like one of the first books I read that I really fell in love with was The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. And it was the 4 paths to enlightenment and what they are and how they work and what you experience and how they change you. It was, just give an example. So you go on a diet and then you pig out and eat chocolate cake and sundaes. And then you're like, why did I do that? I'm on a diet. So What is it that makes us want to do something, and then we find a part of us saying, no, don't do it. So there's sort of an inner conflict. One part of your brain says, go get that ice cream. You know you want it. And there's another part of your brain says, you're too fat. You don't need any more ice cream. And sometimes the part of the brain that says, go eat the ice cream, you deserve it, is louder than the part that says, but what about being too fat? And you ask yourself, where is this inner conflict? Which of those voices is real? Which is the real you? What should you be listening to? Which voice is giving you the right information? And it goes into that. And I found it very helpful when you find yourself struggling with an internal conflict between, I think I want to do this, and the other part of your brain says, really? You know what could happen if you do that? It's not going to be good. And the other part say, well, maybe it won't happen and it really will be good. So you're kind of dealing with these internal voices telling you, go, don't go, try, don't try, do, don't do. And you say, well, how could that be? How is there different voices? It's one person. What do they represent? Where are they coming from? How do you resolve that? How do you get the right response when there's a conflict? And that book covered it very well, and I found it very helpful.
You are considered the fastest reader in the world. The Guinness World Record Book
And
recognizes.
sexiest. I just want to let people, I am not Brad Pitt's twin brother. My hair's shorter. Sometimes people mistake us. You should see the resemblance is uncanny.
They didn't put that too. You read more than 25,000 words per minute and 80 pages per minute. For the Guinness World Record, were you required to submit any documentation or?
Great question. Yes. So most records, they'll send a newspaper article or a TV news show videotape. That's 99.9999% of the records. I had 10 videos from 10 news shows in 10 different cities, and it was news. So they said there's no way 10 news reporters collaborated with you in 10 different cities. And then I had 10 newspapers from 10 different cities that tested me and gave me things to read and had asked me to tell me what was in it. So I'll give you an example. I was in Colorado, and it was a science reporter. He gave me like a 15-page article on the physiology of nightmares, the brain waves and the physiological things that take place in the brain during a nightmare. And I read it in, I think, less than 60 seconds. And then he quizzed me on it, and he said, I understood it better than he did. I was on a show in Cleveland. They gave me a 1,200-page book called The Underground Empire, where crime and punishment meet. And they said, well, you won't finish it, but let's see how far you get. Well, I finished it in 20 minutes twice, and they tested me. I got a perfect score. And then 3 years later, I was back on that show, and they said, it's a goof. We're going to quiz you on the book you read 3 years ago, but not give you the book. And I got 100 on the second quiz. And he said, how did you do that? It took me a week to read that book. You read it in 20 minutes. You remember more than I did. So it's about how you do it. It's not magic. There's a science behind it. If you'd like, we could discuss some of that to help people learn how to do it themselves.
Yeah. So these were random books. You never pre-read them in advance.
No, I can't say never goes wrong. I'll give you a funny one where it didn't go right. It's kind of fun. I was on the Nashville channel. You're in Tennessee. And they gave me a book on country music singers, and it was a biography. And it was like every 3 or 4 pages was another singer. And it's not the genre of music I typically listen to. I enjoy it, but it's not, I liked rock, So anyway, I'm on the country station. It's country music, right? So I read the book, and he said, what are, and I said, he said, tell me what's in the book. So I'm telling him about Hank Williams and all the things that happened to Hank Williams and all the things that went on. And he looks at me and says, that's not in the book. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I read it. No, that wasn't in the book. He said, that was Hank Williams Jr. And I'm like, I didn't know there were two of them. I knew it was Hank Williams. I didn't know there was a son also. I just knew there was a Hank Williams. And everything I said about Hank Williams was Hank Williams Jr. So I don't think it was that terrible at, 80 pages a minute on a subject I knew nothing about. And I retained it. But he made a point of saying I was from New York and I didn't know anything about country music. And I was on the country music station. So you could feel the warmth from the audience when he said that. So it happens. I mean, I thought I did fairly well considering I had no background and I was talking about what happened in great detail. And everything I said was right, but it was the son, not the father. That was the only thing that was wrong.
There's a lady, I believe her name is Maria, and she's from the Philippines, and she claims she can read 80,000 words per minute. What are your thoughts on that?
Good for her. I don't think she did a graduate course in educational psych in a couple of hours or finished a 4-year program in psychology and biology at the same time in 1 year. I don't care how fast you read. I could read fast too and not know what I read. It's comprehension, understanding, retention, being able to apply it and use it, which really matters. That's what no one wants to read fast. They want to learn. They want to understand information they're making decisions on. So, yeah, you want to flip through the pages of a book at that speed. Congratulations. Now, even if you remember, so what? You could remember all the equations in the calculus book and fail every test because you don't know how they work or what to do with them. That's not learning. I'm more interested in learning. I'm more interested in understanding what I'm using, being able to use it when I need it. To me, that is the real goal of people. No one wants to just remember the name of the book and who wrote it. They want to know how to use that information to make more money or have more success or have a better life. That's what people want. And so I'm more focused on learning. If someone wants to read at supersonic speed and not understand anything, I say good for them. And again, even if you remember it, all that means is you have a bunch of things in your head that you don't know what to do with, which do you want a doctor who memorized the medical book at that speed but doesn't know how to cure any diseases? So that's kind of how I look at it.
You said one of the key elements in reading is schema. What is schema?
Great question. It's probably one of the most important things we'll talk about. Schema is what makes text meaningful when you're reading. I'm going to give an example of text with no schema. It won't make any sense. Then I'll do it a second time with a one-word title that has schema, and instantly it'll make sense. So you can see how schema works. This is the schemaless text. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake and may cost you quite a bit of money. It doesn't have any meaning because even though the words are easy, there's no schema to make sense out of it. Now I'll read it a second time with a title, one word, but that word has schema, and watch the difference. Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake and may cost you quite a bit of money. There's zero confusion because the word laundry gave your brain schema, meaning, and significance. So what I'm teaching people is where these clues are. So even though they're going much quicker, they're actually understanding in many cases better because they know what the meaning and significance is based on schematic clues. And schema is what makes technical text and words on a page mean something to your brain and not confuse you.
How does your hand help with speed reading?
The hand keeps the eye focused and continually moving. It helps to eliminate many problems like visual regression. Many people read this way: the dog, the dog ran, the dog ran up, the dog ran up the dog ran up the hill, the dog ran up the hill. That's visual regression. They keep going back and repeating and going another word and another word and another word. What the hand does is it keeps the eye focused and continually scanning. Let me show you how to use that to speed up 20 to 40%. So when this interview is over, I'd like our audience to pick up a book you've read, preferably nonfiction, that you understand. So the only thing that could confuse you is the speed that you're reading, not what you're reading. And read for a minute. Use a timer. Maybe you have a smartphone, many people do, or a smartwatch, many people do, or even an egg timer if you're old-fashioned. Read for a minute. See how far you get. Read normal, nothing special. Take a pencil, mark off where you finished in the first chapter and say, okay, that's how fast I read now. Now go to the second chapter, and for about 5 minutes, use your hand, go across one line at a time, eyes following your hand, and this is important, as fast as you can understand. As long as you know what you're reading, go faster and faster and faster till you don't. Since you already know the book, the only reason you don't know what you're reading, it's too fast. Slow down just enough so you're reading as fast as you can understand and no slower. Not faster than you can understand, not slower than you can understand. For 5 minutes, make your eye follow your hand, keep it focused. At the end of the 5 minutes, go back to the first chapter where you timed yourself and set your timer up to a minute. This time, use your hand and read as fast as you could comprehend with your hand. And at the end of the minute, that little line that you used to show how far you could read, you'll pass it by 20 to 40%. Just doing this one change using your hand. Now, there are many other things I teach, but it takes longer. If people go to berglearning.com, we have the whole program. But this is the first step. And if you try it, you will immediately see an increase of 20 to 40% from what you were reading beforehand. It's easy to do. Anyone can do that. If you could read, I mean, anyone who can read can do it. If you can't read, you don't say, look at that, I can read. If you're reading in a language you don't speak, no, you're not going to read it very well. I can't read Chinese, and if I use my hand, I still can't read Chinese.
Have you ever trained people in the U.S. Special Forces?
Yes, at Fort Bragg. I believe they changed the name of the base to a new name, but it was Fort Bragg. I trained the U.S. Special Forces, and I spent a lot of time on emotional intelligence. I also trained the Royal Thai Army in Bangkok. They're very well trained, but sometimes on their missions, they don't get sleep. They could be up 3-4 days in a row, and sometimes things don't go as planned. And if you don't remember your training, you could get killed. You have a bad day, you work late, or you had to work on a day off. That's a bad day. Green Beret has a bad day, they get killed. So I was showing them how to create emotional states to stay calm and focused when very bad things were happening, so they could remember everything they were taught and do what they were taught so they could stay alive and finish what they needed to do without getting hurt. If they get nervous, if they get frightened, if they don't remember what they were told, it can have very, very bad outcome. I'll give an example that's less drastic for you and I. So a lot of people, eventually they take a road test. So imagine I'm a driving teacher and I teach you how to drive, and I say, you're ready to pass the road test. And you say, okay, you make your appointment, you go to the road test, you call me out and say, how'd you do? I failed. How could you fail? You're a very good driver. I got nervous. It was a test. You know anyone who ever got nervous on an important test. And what did it do to the performance? Couldn't remember anything. Now, what if I didn't just teach you how to drive, but how to stay calm during the test so that you could use the skills that you have mastered? How many more of my students would successfully pass that test? How many more referrals would I get? A lot of people watching this have companies. What states do people need to be in to do what you're telling them in your business successfully? What state might get in the way, like anxiety on a road test? And what are you doing to eliminate that state? It's not enough to tell people what they need to know. You also have to tell them how to stay in the right emotional state to successfully do what you're telling them so that they can get the results that were expected. If you're nervous or tense or anxious or not thinking clearly, even good information won't be used successfully, and they're going to blame you and want their money back. So this is very important. What are the states people need to be in? And if you'd like, I can show you how to create a state if that would help.
Sure, yeah.
So this is what I actually taught the Green Berets. For this one drill, can you please stand up? Just for this one drill. I can't stand up because my navel will be where the microphone is. But for those in the audience, stand up. Now we know the left side of the brain controls the right and the right controls the left. Do this. Take your left hand, touch your right shoulder. Take your right hand, touch your left shoulder. So you're actually giving yourself a brain massage. It's also like the Macarena without the music. Now, do the same thing, left hand to right knee. And if you're standing, your knee's going to move. Left hand to right knee, right hand to left knee, alternate. And again, if you're standing, the knee will move. So both sides of your brain are active. And grab your thumb like I am. Put your hand up and say this with enthusiasm. I feel great. Yes. Like you mean it. Don't go, I feel great. That's how you want to feel? No, you want to feel great. Not great. Good. We're going to do 3 sets of these at my speed. Then I'll show you how to instantly wake up when you're getting tired. You ready? Shoulders first, my speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great. Yes. A little faster this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great. Yes. This time as fast as you can, and don't stand too close to your TV or you might bang your knees. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great. Yes. Feel great. Smile. Sit down. Do you know what happens when you do this 3 times? Nothing. Now you probably would like something, so let me show you that works. Remember Pavlov? He rang a bell. He fed a dog. He rang a bell. He fed a dog. He rang a bell, and eventually the dog drooled. That's our Rotary bell. I was president last year. I still have the bell. So, you want to feel great. The latest studies show habits take 90 days, not 30 days. Every day you do the shoulders, slow, medium, fast with the legs. I feel great. Yes. Now you're in an important meeting or an exam. You don't want to stand up and start tapping your shoulders. People will think something's wrong. You grab your thumb and say to yourself, I feel great. Yes. And every time you did that, you stimulated the left brain. You stimulated the right brain. You stimulated both sides at the same time. And you woke up. And this is your bell. I feel great. Yes. And when you do that, the state that you've created will instantly come back. Just like Pavlov's dog with the bell drooled when the bell rang. You don't want to drool, but you want to feel great. So this is a great way to do that. There's a little caveat to that. The longest running show in history was the Joe Franklin show. This was with one person. There's been longer running shows, but not with one person. 50 years, the same person. And I was on the show the last 3 weeks. that was on the air. And I sat next to him, and during the ad, I said, Joe, what's your secret? How did you manage to be on the air for 50 years? No one's done this before. And he smiled, and he looked at me, and he said, sincerity. And when you can fake that, you can do anything. That's just the way he said it. And I want you to know, no one can fake sincerity for 50 years. And if you don't feel great, you're not going to feel great later when you do it. You have to feel great to elicit the state later. That's why I'm telling you it's so important. I feel great, yes. Not I feel great, yes. Because that's what you'll be feeling later, and that's not what you want. You can't fake sincerity, not for 50 years, and probably not even for a few minutes in some cases. So that's emotional intelligence. That's one aspect of it. There are many others. And as you learn how to create emotional states in yourself, you learn also how to show others how to do that when they need to. And it makes a tremendous difference in performance.
Have you encountered any challenges in your speed reading journey?
My first marriage, Just teasing. What do you mean by challenges? In what respect?
Like maybe like some limitation or something you had to overcome?
That's been an area I've actually had a lot of success with. Remember, I'm changing my system for learning from reading I'm not learning a calculus book in 5 minutes, but I am learning it at a very high level, doing a complete analysis. It might take a few hours to do 5 months worth of learning, but it is a few hours. It's not 10 minutes. So I don't consider that a challenge when I look at the alternative of spending 5 months versus 7 hours. It's a no-brainer for anyone. If you had to take a very advanced exam, maybe law, medicine, architecture, whatever it is, even a massage therapist, they have to take a test. If you can learn a good chunk of that material at a very high level and retain it when you need it in a fraction of the time, what does it mean? Well, for a doctor that has to take courses every year to stay licensed, it means more time to spend with their family or more times to build their practice. For anyone, a lawyer, it means you have more billable hours or more time for your family because you learned the material you needed to learn to keep your license active in a fraction of the time very successfully. So that's a big win for most people. And whether you're a professional or not, there's probably something you need to know. And if you can learn it faster and better, why not? Why wouldn't you? I don't think anyone gets up and says, I want to be dumber today than I was yesterday. And I want to make less money than I did yesterday. And I want to have an uglier partner in my life. Nobody gets up like that. Everyone's like, what can I do today to have a better life? And that's really what I'm trying to. Ultimately, everything in your life depends on one thing: what you know. Everything you do is based on what you know, what you understand, your database. If you have a bigger database with better quality information, more choices, if you've read more books, you're going to probably make better choices in your life and career and have more success. Certainly better than someone who has less information and fewer choices, because we live in a knowledge-based economy and every 6 months the data doubles. So unless you're learning really fast, you're having a problem staying on top of what you need to know, let alone learning something new that's important.
In your everyday life, text messages, emails, maybe you're driving somewhere and you see a billboard, would you read that normally or you speed read that also?
Well, I don't read my text messages in the car. I do think that's a bad thing to do. I wouldn't do that. But billboards, yeah, I can read fast. I could shut it off too. There are times when I don't want to read fast. Like if I'm reading a really good story, I don't want to read a story. And let's say I like Harry Potter. It's not my genre, but let's say I'm reading it and I waited 6 months for the book. Do I want to finish it in 5 minutes? I don't think so. So I have systems set up. So how do you read for pleasure, like a novel, differently than you would read a different book? How do you get the pleasure and the speed? How do you combine it so you don't finish the book in 5 minutes? You really want to enjoy it. There's modifications we can make. There's a difference between reading for fun, reading because you want to learn something, reading for a test or a meeting at work where someone else is going to ask questions, not you, and mastery, where you're having to perform at an extremely high level, like a doctor or an attorney passing the bar or passing a certification test in medicine. That's a very high level of learning. And they're all learning, they're all reading, but I wouldn't consider reading Harry Potter the same as passing the bar. And if you read for the law exam like you were reading Harry Potter, good luck passing the law exam. If you read Harry Potter like the person studying for the law exam, I don't think you're going to have a lot of fun reading the book. So we can't call all reading the same thing. There are different types of reading, and I teach people how to make changes in the application of the skills to fit the need they have at that time. Do you really, 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 really want to know, or you want to have an idea? You want to have a good background, something you could discuss intelligently, but not necessarily have memorized every detail. All different and not the same application. That's my purpose. The first thing you needed is, what am I trying to do when I read this? What is my win? And when I'm done, what do I want the outcome to be? How much is enough? And you need to know how much is enough. Now, when you're taking tests for school or work, I teach how to figure out what the instructor will ask, how to get in the mind of the teacher or the test creator and ask yourself what information matches what most likely will be on that test. So you're not thinking like a student learning the subject. You're thinking like the instructor asking the questions. Because by and large, in any school situation, doesn't matter what you learn. What matters is, do you know the answers to the questions? If the only thing you don't know are those questions, you get an F. If the only thing you do know is the questions and you know nothing else, you're going to get an A. Whether that's fair or not, I can't say, but that's the system. And if you want an A, you need to know what they want you to know, not what you think they should want you to know, which is very different. And the reason many people perform poorly on exams is they prioritize what they think is very important, but that isn't what the instructor thinks is important. And so you have all this information you spent hours mastering and no one cares. And then all that information you didn't focus on is the basis of your grade and you don't know it. And it makes you feel very upset that you spent all that time focusing and learning and mastering what really mattered and none of it was on the test. Good example, I had an American history, world history course, and the professor said the final was going to be on everything happening after World War II. They told us, make sure you learn everything for after World War II. That's all that'll be on the test. Sounds good. The whole test was everything before World War II. He changed his mind, never said anything. We all studied for after World War II, and the test was before World War II. Too bad. They can do whatever they want, and there isn't a thing you can do about it. So if you don't figure out what to study, doesn't matter what you know, you're not going to perform well. So that's one of the skills I focus on is what's the director of your company want you to know? What's the prospect or client want you to know? Not what you want to know. What do they want to know? Because your job is about answering their questions, not looking smart on things they don't care about. Now, there's times when you want to know and it's for you. Then you read and learn what you want. But when someone else is grading you, and I consider a meeting with a client a grade, did you get the deal or not? If you didn't say what they wanted to hear, you didn't get the deal. That's a failing grade. So it really isn't about what you think matters. It's about what do they think. And if you can psych it out and figure out what they want, which you can do much better in less time because you're learning exactly what needs to be learned and not wasting time on things that have no relevance to the outcome you're seeking.
In the sports world, they say athletes' prime years are in their early 30s. Was there a time in your life with speed reading that you could say you were in your prime?
Early 30s. And the reason is your eyes change. I'm almost 75. I'm wearing progressive lenses. When I was 30, I didn't need glasses. I could read the entire page at once. I could see the whole top to bottom, everything at one glance, everything. No problem. Now I can see this much at a time. I have to scan. It's harder because I can't see as clearly. However, the other advantage is I've read almost 30,000 books. So I have a very good database of data. And when I'm reading something, even for the first time, there's a very good chance that something I read before is related in some way to what I'm reading now. So even though I haven't seen this book or that material, there's data in it that I've experienced elsewhere, making it possible for me to read at a higher level of understanding. So I see the bigger picture and I see other connections to that information that's not being mentioned, but because I've read those other books, I see those connections. In fact, can I give you a way to triple the amount of learning you get when you learn?
Yes.
When most people take notes, they only write what they're learning. I mean, that's what you assume notes are for. I'm learning this, I'm learning this, I'm learning this, and that's what you write. You're missing 2/3 of the information if that's what you do. And I'll show you 2 ways to capture the missing 2/3. One is on a computer. A lot of people today will take notes on a laptop. So if you're using a laptop, set up a 3-column table and a couple hundred rows because you're going to write a lot. The first column is what you're learning, what you always wrote about. The second column is your insights. 2 things go here. One, what did the writer, or if it's a live program like this, what did the speaker say or do that made you go, wow, that's amazing. I love that. Did they tell a story? Did they do a demonstration? Did they have an interesting slide? Whatever they did that made you go, wow, I love this, you can do when you're speaking or you're writing. You just found a strategy that makes people's brains go, wow, I love this. Why not use it when you want other people to say that about what you're doing? The other thing I put in the second column is, is there any other information that I know related to this that might make this make more sense? That's the second column, insight. Now, the third column is application. How will I use what I just learned? As an example, I'm at a Dan Kennedy seminar. He just taught a new marketing technique. And I'm watching this technique and thinking, I can increase my sales by 30% if I use that. And so I write in the third column exactly what I'm going to do with that idea when I get home to increase my sales. And then when I'm reviewing my notes, I make sure that every day I do a couple of the things that I said I was going to do and do them. Now, if I see a 30% increase in sales, do I need to study that over and over again? Or is the experience of that burst of sales enough for my brain to say, I love this, I'm going to do this again and again and again? The experiences you get by using information can be far more important than reading or hearing. You remember 10% of what you read, but 90% of what you say and do. It's the doing that leads to the highest level. And that third column is what you will do with what you're learning. So you have your notes, your insights, and your application. Now, if you don't use a computer, you can code it. And a fact could be an F with a dash. A insight could be an I with a dash. And an application could be an A with a dash. So you're basically using the symbols F, I, and A instead of column 1, column 2, and column 3. But look at how much more information you're getting at the same time from reading and experiencing by just including the insights and applications and not just the facts. But how much better are you going to learn it when you go home and use what you learned, actually do something and experience the benefits that come from doing it versus just hearing it for a minute or two and forgetting about it? It's a much better way to take notes.
So you're able to speed read and also take notes.
Yes. And the trick is, first I read the whole book, and then I chunk one chapter, and I read as far as I can and still know what I'm reading. And depending on the complexity of the topic and background and familiarity and how much I've seen this already, the more I know, the farther I can go. The less I know, the less I need to learn a lot more vocabulary and things. And so then I take my notes on this information that I don't know yet. And I'll tell you, there's only 5 things you need to learn. Would you like to know what they are?
Yes.
New words. Vocabulary is 80% of learning something for the first time. 80%. What is the word and what does it mean? The second thing is people, names. Who's in my book and what did they do? The third thing is any number, date, statistic, or formula. How do I use it? The fourth thing is the nonfiction books. There's headings and subheadings that act like file folders, labels, separating the themes and topics from one another. In each of those sections, what are the 5 big ideas? The 5 main ideas, if there are. Sometimes there may be more, sometimes there may be less, but at least 5. What are the big takeaways? And lastly, any questions they ask and the answers. Now, in many textbooks, the questions are at the end. After you finish reading, they ask you questions. So what do people do? They read 70 pages. There's 50 questions. They don't know any answers. They have to go back and find the answer. No. Because you've skimmed the book before you read it, you know that's at the back of the chapter. Read it first. These are the 50 things I need to know when I'm done. Before you start, I know the 50 things I need to look for that matter because the person writing the book said, I want you to know this when you're done. And I'm going to assume if they wrote a book, they know more about what matters than you do if you didn't write the book. So I know 50 things I need to look for before I even begin to read. And when I see it, I say, this is one of the things I need to know. And I don't have to go back and find it because I just did. It's a big time saver. So if you know every word and what it means, every person and what they did, every number and how it's used, the 5 big ideas in every section, and every question and answer, what else do you think you need to know? That's what you learn. That's it. That's what you learn. And if you do it the way I'm describing, you can master even very difficult subjects in a much faster amount, much less time with better outcomes because you have a goal. You have a purpose. You know what you're looking for. You know when you found it and you're doing something with it. That's what I'm doing. Not 80 pages a minute. That's learning very high level material very quickly and knowing it and understanding it and applying it. Who wants to read 80 pages a minute and not know anything? It's not what I'm doing. It's not what I'm teaching. Yes, I can go very fast and pick up lots and lots of data because I've been doing it so long. I know a lot already. I've read 30,000 books. So even though I didn't read that book, I read other books and that had some of that information. I recognized it. But something brand new, no background, no knowledge, no vocabulary, no names, no nothing. I can't read 80 pages a minute and retain all that. No one can. But I can learn it very, very well, very quickly, and know it years and years later, which I think is more important.
Has anyone high up in the government reached out to you to offer you a job?
Just the strategic defense people. The government isn't really interested in learning. I feel sad about it. I would love, like the Secretary of Education, I could show them how to turn the problem in this. Remember when people were online and no one was learning? No, they learn better online. They didn't do it the right way. They're trying to do classroom learning online. It doesn't work. I'll show you how to do it online, and it does work. We had a school. I owned a school. What we did, the students were given reading assignments, and we set up these columns. The first column was a question. Every unit had 300 questions, and you had to write an essay, not a multiple choice, not a fill-in, an essay on each question and get it right. If you got it right, we highlighted it in green. If you got it wrong, we highlighted it in red. You had to do it again and again and again. After 3 or 4 times, we gave them a clue and another clue and another clue and another. We never gave them the answer. Never. How are you going to learn if you can't think? We give you enough information so eventually you figure it out. And that's missing in school. They give people who can't learn and running D's and they promote them. If you got a D in arithmetic, you're never going to learn algebra because you don't even know arithmetic. We didn't have D's. We didn't have C's. We didn't have B's. You got an A and you earned it. You got an A when you earned it, and you didn't go on to the next lesson until you learned it. Now, what we did with students that struggled is what they need to do. Students that did it by themselves didn't need help. They learned it. But when you had a problem, a teacher would contact you and tutor you on the phone and help you to learn and understand what you were struggling with. So you're putting your teaching time on students that don't know, and you're letting students that do know work as fast as they can. One of our students did high school biology in a week. You might say, what did he learn? He had a 300 essay final. Here's one of the questions. Explain the genetic code and how it works. What is the mitochondria? If you're 11 years old and you could write 300 essays at that level and get none of them wrong, you finished high school biology. So instead of trying to teach a class online, we're teaching them self-guided erudition. We teach them how to learn before we teach them content. No one got any subjects till they learned how to read and think and learn and remember and analyze and study and write. Then we taught them the subjects with the learning skills. And when they didn't learn, we worked with them till they did. No one went to the next lesson till they learned the one they were on at an A level. Do you want a pilot that got a D in landings? Do you want a surgeon who got a D in heart? No. You want someone who knows how to land the plane. And school is promoting people with D's that have no idea what they learned. And they get to high school and they don't know what's going on because they never learned to read. And they never learned to write. And they never learned to count. And now you're asking them to do it at a high school level when they couldn't do it in elementary school. Shame on them. They should never have moved them forward till they mastered those skills, and they should have spent as much time as they needed to make them, help them master those skills. So they don't end. I was in a high school when I got out of college, 95% dropout rate. 5% of the students graduated. And I offered to teach learning and they wouldn't let me. They said it wasn't in the curriculum. So there's your government. I could have helped those kids and improved their performance, but no, that's not in the. So you do what you do. You'll have a 95% dropout rate. That makes more sense. And that's what the problem is. Even though there's a solution, it's a proven solution, and it would change everything, it won't happen. The only way this happens, parents get this for their kids. People get this for themselves, and then they give it to their kids to use the same program. They're reading a spreadsheet, the kid's reading a history book. Reading is reading. Memory is memory. Studying is studying. The subjects might be different, but the technique doesn't change for the student or the adult. Berglearning.com is where they can get it. And I will help them if they need help. I make sure they don't just buy something, they learn it. I want more smart people. The world's in trouble. Watch the news. Does anyone say there's too many smart people making too many good decisions? That's what's going on in the world? No one. No one's saying that. Now, I can't fix all the problems. I know that. But if I can reach people who are decision makers and give them the ability to learn more and understand more and make better choices, that could have an impact over time. That's really my purpose. That's my goal. It's not just about teaching. It's about making the world a better place, not through bombs and bullets, but through learning and understanding. I think that's how we're going to make it work, or we're not going to have a world if we can't do that. And I can't do it by myself, but if people take the time to learn my skills, share it with their families, together we can start to make a difference. Imagine millions of people doing what I'm doing. What would that do for medicine? What would that do in every industry if there were millions of people doing what I described? What a better world we'd have. So that's my goal. That's why I do shows, because I can do this and I can teach it. And me doing it doesn't mean anything. What matters is you doing it and your children doing it and the people you care about doing it. And together we become a family of smart people making better choices and helping move everything in the right direction.
We have all this AI stuff now, Chat GPT. What do you see as the future of speed reading, and how do you think advancements in technology may impact it?
Reading is going to be more and more e-reading. And one of the things in my new program is how to use e-reading, because 90% of the people today don't read books. They read Kindles, they read Kindle apps or something similar. My grandchildren never had a book in college. Every book they read was an ebook. And there is a way to speed read ebooks and speed learn ebooks. And so I had to change because society's changed. Fewer and fewer books are being printed and more ebooks. So I'm teaching how to learn on an ebook and how to study on an ebook and how to memorize and take notes on an ebook. That's the future. And you can't blame the publishers. There's no risk in an ebook. It's all electrons. They don't have to store very expensive volumes of books in a warehouse that may never get sold. If you don't buy it, it's sitting on a hard drive. If you do buy it, you're downloading the electrons. So the risk to the publisher is very, very low. They can afford to publish more books because it's all profit. You either buy it or you don't buy it, but they didn't have to publish it till you bought it. And that's the future. The problem is studies have shown that physical books result in better learning and longer retention. That I can't change. Nevertheless, I think they'll still be around like records. There's still people who own records and play them. It's not like it was in the 60s or 70s, but there are people who appreciate the sound of a record over an MP3. And there'll probably still be records, but they'll never be the dominant media for music. And books, printed books, will no longer be the dominant media for reading. It'll be ebooks.
Have you ever read the Bible in one sitting before?
I could read it in about 20 minutes.
The whole Bible?
15, 20 minutes. My students, we were in a Judeo-Christian school. It was a home school, and a lot of them were very, very, very religious. So we gave them 28-page reports to do on the book of Matthew, and they did them in 4 hours at the graduate school level. I was telling you that at the beginning. And we have a way to speed learn the Bible that we teach, and we taught our students because they were reading. One of the classes they took was Bible class. So yes, you could speed learn the Bible at a higher level. In fact, would you like me to show you something that you never heard of about the Bible that's revolutionary?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Why is Jesus' name Jesus? And I guarantee you don't know the answer, and I'll give it to you. In Hebrew, God's name is 4 letters, Yad, He, Vav, He, final. And with the vowels, it was Yahweh. Those 4 letters are fire, air, water, and earth. So the creation of the universe, God's name, fire, air, water, earth, Yad, He, Vav, He, final. Jesus' name in Hebrew was Yad, He, Shin, Vav, He, final. The letter Shin is the Trinity in Hebrew, and it was pronounced Yeshua. So his name was Yeshua ben Joseph, Yeshua son of Joseph. When the Greeks took over the Bible, the Y's became J's. Yahweh became Jehovah. Yeshua became Jesus. The word Jesus is the word of God, Yad He Vav He final, with the letter Shin, which is the Trinity in Hebrew, in the middle of the word. So it's the name of God with a Shin in the middle, the Trinity. And that's why it says there's no name above that, because it's the word of God with the Shin in the middle. That's where the name comes from. It's an anagram built on the word of the name of God. Most people wouldn't know that. So yeah, I read the Bible, and I read a lot of other things also.
So what Mr. Berg just said about Jesus' name and God's name in Hebrew is very interesting. I'm not a Hebrew expert, but the name of God in Hebrew is Yod He Vav He, which is 4 letters. It's also known as the Tetragrammaton. There's a lot of debate on how it's actually pronounced. Firmly, I believe that he wanted his name to be known and glorified. It says, "Those who call upon the Lord shall be saved." In Exodus, God reveals his name to Moses. When Moses meets God at the burning bush, he says, "I am who I am." He also says, "The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has sent me to you." The "I am who I am" is the name of Yahweh, the one true God, the eternally existing one. You also see in the Bible where it has Lord in all capital letters. The Old Testament reveals the one true God is one being and 3 persons. Also in Genesis, God says, "Let us make mankind in our image, our likeness." So the Old Testament proves the triune God. And then Jesus' name, Yeshua in Hebrew, it also can be found in the word for salvation. And there's all kinds of debate on how to actually pronounce Jesus' name in Hebrew. And some people will say that you're not even saying Jesus' true name, so you're not even referring to God the correct way. I think my God's smart enough to know that he knows I'm talking to him. And on top of that, whose name is used as a cuss word the most? Jesus Christ is used as a cuss word. GD. Why do people still use God's name as a cuss word? They don't even believe in God. The Hebrew letter Shin, its gematria is 300. And it is interesting that it has 3 flame points. Maybe that's where people get that it represents the Trinity. I'm not 100% sure on how people are getting that, but the Hebrew language is fascinating. I think you have to be careful with trying to find some secret meaning or, hidden meaning in the text. It's definitely on my goals to learn the Hebrew language. Shin is the 21st letter, and from reading some websites here, obviously you can't trust all websites, but it's associated with fire and the sun, and its ancient picture is teeth. And the word for tooth is shin. And then you have some people that say that the earliest form of this letter represented a bow, a composite bow, recurve bow sign. And yeah, the Hebrew language is very fascinating, but let's get back to the interview.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And that's what I love about what I do. I see things nobody sees. When you've read all these books, that's in here. And when you're trying to fix something, the data comes together. You see relationships that other people don't see because they don't have that data to begin with to form the solutions. And that's really what's going to make the difference. If more and more people can take everything and put it in here, think of the changes they can make and the innovations they could make and the improvements they could make. That's what excites me. That's why I'm here. I know they can do it. berglearning.com. And I will help you if you need help. I want you to learn it. And don't just use it for you. Don't make your kids. Do it with your kids. What a wonderful thing of a parent can take this and make more money at work, and your kids get higher grades from the same experience. And the kids will be more likely to do it if you do it as a family and you share it as a family. That's the way I would do it. And then it's not like, Daddy made me learn this. I don't want it. Instead of, I'm doing a fun night with my mom and dad, and look, I'm getting higher grades because of what we did last night. That's the way to do it. Do it with your family. Make more money for yourself and get your kids a good education where they're learning. Don't expect school to do it. It isn't going to happen. I told you my school, there was a 5% graduation rate, and they shut the school down because not enough people graduated. And I tried. I offered to help. They wouldn't let me. But I can help you, and I can help your kids right now. And that's why I'm here today. And that's what this is all about. I don't mind doing this because I know I can make a difference. And I feel like I have a responsibility to use the gift I've been given to help other people. It isn't about, look at Howard read. It's about, look at you do it, boy and girl. Look at you flying through that book, and you actually know what you're reading. And like Ruth Lubin, 84 years old, 3 books in 3 hours, and said, I don't know how much time I got left, but boy, there's so much more I want to know, and now I can do it. That made my day. That made my day. Or the 8-year-old in Toronto reading it 5 seconds a page, and I read faster than that, and I reread it, and she answered every question right. And I'm like, 8 years old, reading 5 seconds a page and knowing what they read and retaining it. What can that child do in the future? And the answer is anything. Anything. That's the future. That's the future I envision, and that's the future I'm trying to create by helping people.
Do you think you have this speed reading gift from God?
Yeah, actually, I'm a direct descendant of Moses' brother Aaron. You know, there's 12 tribes in Israel. One of the tribes is the Kohanes. Those were the high priests, the ones who could go in the Holy of Holies. And they're all direct descendants of Moses' brother Aaron in the Bible. Remember the 10 Commandments, Aaron? I'm a direct descendant. I'm not the last of the Mohicans. There's many others. But I am a direct descendant of Moses' brother Aaron in the Bible. And the way you know is what your father is, that's what you are. My father was a Kohen. I'm a Kohen. My son is a Kohen. You can't become a Kohen. Your only path to being a Kohen is being a direct descendant. So when I watch the 10 Commandments and I see Moses and I see Aaron, that's my family. Those are people that are directly related to biologically. And that's a pretty cool way to watch it. When you watch it, hey, there's my great uncle, and there's my great grandfather. It makes the movie much more interesting. Go, Grandpa. And I want to be. I think that's God chooses people who choose God. If you choose to serve, if you choose to do, if you say, help me be a medium through which what you want to see happen happens, give me that ability. I'm in over 120 countries, but programs like in 120 languages. And so I'd like to think that is an indication that's what's happening. And it makes me feel like there's a reason for me to be here. I'm doing something positive in a very negative time. There's so much negativity in the world. And I'm trying to make people realize that we can gain more by helping one another than hating each other.
Something that I found really interesting was you taught swimming for 18 years. Why were you?
When I was in college, I got to take gym, and I took water safety instruction. So I was an aquatics director, and I ran swim fronts and camps over the summer, and that's how I paid for college. When I got out of college and I had my day job, I worked in a swimming pool at night teaching life saving and then guarding the pool. I did that for 18 years, and I've saved over 16 people. One person was dead, and it wasn't my pool. I was swimming in a pool where they died, and I pulled them out and saved them. I brought them back. I started their heart and got them breathing. It was very exciting. But I've taught several hundred people how to be a lifeguard, and I trained several thousand people on how to swim. And I did it till I was in my early 30s, and it's very physical. So at that point, I transitioned more into what I'm doing now. But I enjoyed it. I felt that, again, what could be more gratifying than taking a dead person and reviving them? I mean, what an experience that was. I never forgot it.
There's a commercial, and it's you, Peyton Manning, Justin Timberlake. What was?
Amy Sedaris.
Yes, what was that experience like?
I get a call from Sony. We want you to do a commercial. We want you to be the spokesperson for the Sony e-reader. And you'll be on with Peyton Manning and Justin Timberlake and Amy Sedaris. And I'm like, who is this? Hey, is this a kind of prank call? And they're like, no, we're from Sony. We really would like you to do this. And I was like, seriously? Yeah, this is for real. I'm like, okay, I could do that. So it was very nice. I met them. One was even more excited. I got to be the spokesperson for the launch of the 4G system in Australia for their phone company. They flew me to Sydney, and I was on all these TV shows and showing them how I read and saying, their 4G is faster than I read. And it was really cool. I got to go to Australia and meet people and do shows and have a lot of fun. It was very exciting. It's a wonderful country. If you ever get a chance, it's a great place to visit. People are very friendly, and it's just it's a very nice country to visit. Just don't get bit by anything. Everything there is poisonous. All the animals, all the bugs, don't get bit. You get bit, you're in big trouble.
Would you care to tell us the story where you read Call of the Wild in 90 seconds?
It was actually 7th grade. I remember that. So I read it in 90 seconds, and my English teacher's like, I told you to read the story. And I was like, I did. You didn't read the story. It's 90 seconds. Read it again. So another 90 seconds. I read it again. What's up with you, Berg? I told you. And I'm like, I could tell you everything that was in the story. I'm done. I mean, it took me 90 seconds. Before I learned to read fast, I was reading 3,000 words a minute before I sped up, which is 15 times faster than normal. So my base speed was 3,000 before I even started thinking about going quickly. And the teacher was looking at me like, you can't do that. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? I read it 3 times. They were like, it's going to take the class 50 minutes. It was like, I don't want to work today. Read the story. And this guy's finished in 15 seconds. And they're like, you're not finished. You got to read the story. Or I read the story. I can read the book in 15 minutes. The whole book. What do I? And the teacher was yelling at me, thinking I was playing with her. And I wasn't. I read it 4 times in about 8 minutes. And I was getting annoyed because I didn't want to read it anymore. I was tired of reading the story. It was funny. I remember that. I never forgot that. I had another teacher who was a writing teacher. And she gave me a D on something I wrote, which I know I did. I'm a good writer. And I've had many bestsellers. And I'm like, why did I get a D? I know you didn't write this. It's too good. You don't write this well. She gave us 2 assignments, non-fiction. What's life like in a ping pong ball and on the other side of the rainbow? And I'm like, never been in a ping pong ball. And I'm really not sure what's on the other side of the rainbow. But the third story was tell about something that happened in your life that was traumatic. That I could write about because I had a very traumatic experience. So you're telling me I'm writing so well, you can't believe you know how to teach writing? You're giving me lessons on how to write, and now you're upset because I'm doing better? So you're going to give me a D because it's A-level writing, and you can't believe you're that good a teacher that my ability went up? And I'm thinking, this was the first time you asked me to write nonfiction. Both other times were fiction, and I don't write fiction. What is the problem with you, teacher? And again, you're a writing teacher. Why are you having such a hard time believing one of your students is writing better because you taught them something? And I was really, really upset because I didn't cheat. It was a real, I wrote it all. And I was like, I got a D because I wrote too well. I found that I was angry at that. It's one thing if you cheated and got caught, but I hadn't cheated, and I was really, really outraged that I had written that well and they were penalizing me for doing a good job. That's school. That's our education system.
So, how fast can you write a book?
My last book I wrote in 5 hours, and it went #1 on Amazon the next day. And then I started a course on how to write a book in a day, which is learnable. It's not hard. It sounds hard, but it isn't hard. You could write a book. It would be an ebook. It would be about 60 to 80 pages. If you want to do 300-400 page book, it'll do 60 to 80 pages for 5 or 6 days. Same thing, just do more days. And you could have a 300-400 page book. It's not hard. It's very easy.
So, what would be some steps for just someone today that could increase their speed?
Using your hand and going one line at a time as fast as you could comprehend for 5 minutes, and then going back and seeing how much faster you're reading. That'll do you 20 to 40%.
Now, where can people check out your work? I just Google your name, Howard Berg, and then
Berg Learning. B-E-R-G, because there's more than one way to spell Berg. B-E-R-G learning.com. And I think it's in 110 languages or 120 languages. So if English isn't your first language, you could still take the course. It's subtitled. Pretty much every language that's major in the world can take the course. And I do get people from all over the world, Africa, Australia. The only place I never got an order was Antarctica. But I don't think there's a lot of people there, and they probably got other things on their plate.
Wow. So speed reading translates to all languages.
This works in any language. Exactly. Language is language. The symbols are different, but how the brain makes meaning and significance is very similar in all the languages. There is a difference, though, between East and West. In China and Japan, there's no topic sentences. It's just a haiku. You write until you feel that's all you need to say, and you start another paragraph. They don't have the same language structure that we have in the West, where there's a topic sentence and then the rest of the paragraph. Very interesting, because that means they're cognitively processing data much differently than we are. Because we all think with topic sentences, and they don't.
Wow. Well, Mr. Berg, I really appreciate your time and doing this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I like doing it, and I hope people will take advantage of berglearning.com. You won't just learn the program, it'll change your life, and it'll change the life of people you love. And that's really what I'm here for. Me doing it isn't going to change the world. All of us together doing it can make a huge difference.